Welcome to WHRO's Weekly Edition. I'm Jordan Christie.
And I'm Barry Graham.
We highlight the week's news and stories happening all over Hampton Roads. In this week's program, a farm preservation program is attracting prospective participants in Virginia Beach's rural South. And they're in luck because another big year might be around the corner.
Williamsburg, James City County, and the WJCC School Board signed a 10-year funding agreement, closing the final chapter on the district's ongoing saga.
This is a new beginning for WJCC schools and a stronger beginning.
A Center for Energy and Law Policy is opening at William & Mary Law School. WHRO spoke with the center's founding director, who is a longtime energy regulator. It's WHRO's Weekly Edition. Virginia Beach's farmland preservation program is attracting more applicants in the city's rural South. WHRO's John Doucette details that another strong year may lay ahead.
The Agricultural Reserve Program has helped protect farmland for 3 decades. It purchases development rights from landowners who continue to own their land. This past year was a strong one for the ARP. City Agriculture Director David Trimmer says it brought in 467 acres. The annual target is 300.
I see the program in good standing. The interest is there. People want to preserve farmland.
Trimmer says interest rates that help purchase the rights have been strong. That attracts applicants. John Cromwell chairs the Agricultural Advisory Commission. This fiscal year is expected to be another strong one for the ARP. Cromwell says that's important for farmers and consumers.
And this is a wonderful opportunity for people to join and preserve what we have.
John Doucette, WHRO News.
Moving up to the peninsula, where Jefferson Lab is looking to lay off at least 46 in January. WHRO's Nick McNamara says this comes after it failed to get 65 workers to resign earlier this year.
Employees will find out if they're being laid off on January 23rd and will depart the Nuclear Physics Research Lab the same day. Those selected will get 2 weeks of pay before their termination date and severance pay based on their length of service. That severance will cap out at $50,000. Director Jens Dilling told staff Friday the process is complicated by the ongoing government shutdown. If it continues long enough, the timeline for JLab's layoffs might change. Unlike many federal facilities, the lab is continuing to operate using reserve funds, but that money will run out by November. Lab leaders are exploring options to furlough 900 employees that will best stretch its dollars to keep 45 workers on through Christmas to maintain the lab and its particle accelerator. Nick McNamara, WHRO News.
Heads up for Virginia Beach voters, you have an extra item on your ballot next month. It's about the city's local voting districts. WHRO's Michelle Hankerson explains what you should expect when you head to the voting booth.
The referendum asks voters if they want to keep the 10-1 voting system the city has used in the last 2 local elections. If voters pick no, it means they prefer what is called a modified 7-3-1 system. That's never been used, but is currently in the city charter. City leaders decided to put the issue to voters after legal challenges to the 10-1 system. Here's Deputy City Attorney Chris Boynton after one legal proceeding.
What was most important to our city council is to allow a referendum to go forward. That will happen, the public will have a chance to speak, and then we'll see what comes next.
The 10-1 system lets voters in each district elect 1 representative on city council and the school board. In the 7-3-1 system, voters pick 1 district representative and 3 at-large representatives. Everyone votes for the mayor in both setups. Michelle Hankerson, WHRO News.
It's a low point for federal workers. The Trump administration says it will lay off thousands of people amid the government shutdown.
And that's in addition to a hiring freeze and the Doge firings earlier this year.
But Jay Price of the American Homefront Project visited a group of young people optimistic about the idea of serving in federal jobs.
They're Virginia Tech students who won highly competitive spaces in a pilot program that trains civilian workers for the Pentagon.
I think it's the mission, knowing that I'm going to go to work every day and be supporting the warfighter and doing something that's making a real impact out in the world.
That's Peyton Coleman, a graduate student in business analytics, explaining what drew her to the program. It's called the Defense Civilian Training Corps, or DCTC, but think of it as a kind of ROTC for civilians. positions. Students earn scholarships and get summer Defense Department internships, and just like ROTC cadets, they incur an obligation to serve, only in civilian positions. Greg Lowe is program director at Virginia Tech, one of 4 universities where DCTC is offered.
The purpose of this program is to serve as a talent factory for the Department of Defense. Traditionally, the department hires new graduates out of college, and you have to teach them the fundamentals of what we do.
But by the time DCTC students graduate from the 2-year program,
they understand the lingo, they understand the concepts and the processes, they are ready on day one, but they're also adaptable for the future.
For now, DCTC is solely focused on training them for jobs in acquisitions, the federal procurement arm that buys everything from fighter planes and submarines to maintenance services and spare parts. Lowe says their internships with the Department of Defense are key.
They're not just attending meetings and getting coffee. They're actually working on real DoD problems. And then the goal is that those same agencies are the first to offer positions to them upon graduation.
There are almost 60 students in the program at Virginia Tech and more at North Carolina A&T, Purdue, and the University of Arizona. Brent Parmeter was the Pentagon's chief talent officer until early this year. He said during the Biden administration, the Pentagon had hoped to expand the program to more universities and beyond acquisitions, but that was before the DOGE cutting chaos began. Parmeter, now at Syracuse University's Maxwell School of Citizenship and Public Affairs, says when he left the government, DCTC was on the chopping block.
There's no interest in growing people. There's no interest in pipelines of people. It was the cuts that mattered. And DCTC was perfectly ripe for that kind of thing.
The Pentagon didn't respond to a question about the future of DCTC, but some in Congress continue to support it and are trying to mandate that the Trump administration must continue it. Michael O'Hanlon of the Brookings Institution's Foreign Policy Program says eliminating it would be irrational.
It sort of eats the seed corn. The young, hungry, curious people are the ones you should want to incentivize to stay. And they also happen to be less expensive than people my age who've been doing this their whole career. We should want to promote those sorts of programs, not decimate them.
And at some point, he says, the Pentagon will have no choice about prioritizing hiring again.
We have 800,000 full-time government employee civilians who do not wear the uniform to work, doing various kinds of support activities for the Department of Defense, virtually all of which are crucial.
Crucial workers who eventually leave or retire and must be replaced, some of them with hopeful young graduates like Peyton Coleman, who interned at the Defense Logistics Agency.
I think we're definitely in a time of uncertainty in the hiring process, but I think it was really good seeing within DLA this summer how they handled the hiring freeze and seeing that they still were putting their people first and finding ways to make sure that everyone was where they needed to be.
And she figures where she needs to be is working for the Pentagon. I'm Jay Price reporting.
Still ahead on Weekly Edition, the Virginia Department of Health recently updated its COVID-19 vaccine guidelines. We'll have more on what you need to know. But first, we jump across the Elizabeth River to Portsmouth, where 2 statewide groups hosted their annual joint conference. WHRO health reporter I-Ching Wang says it brings together doulas and community health workers to address issues facing their profession.
Over the last 5 years, the conference has grown into a statewide event offering workshops, panels, and networking sessions, with more than 220 participants, both in person and online. This year's conference highlights the partnership between community health workers and doulas. Shanny Jackson from the Virginia Community Health Worker Association says both roles are non-clinical but vital to improving health outcomes.
So the doulas begin the work and the community health workers continue to support that work that is established. So that's the main core idea behind unifying.
The conference will also spotlight recent policy changes aimed at expanding doula access in hospitals and ensuring culturally competent care. I-Ching Wang, WHRO News.
Everyone must get their car inspected in Virginia, and 2 auto shops in Hampton Roads are turning the practice on its head. They'll be the first in the state to use AI to get the job done. WHRO's Toby Cox took a peek under the hood to see how it works.
Cars drive through the UVI system at Bannister Nissan of Chesapeake without stopping. In just 6 seconds, the automated system takes several thousand photos of the exterior, tires, and undercarriage. It flags issues like worn tread and leaks. The system has been compared to an MRI for cars. General Manager Brian Pinkney says it helps customers understand what's going on with their vehicles.
Instead of us just saying, hey, you need tires, we're actually showing them something visually to where they can actually see, and then just that transparency alone, it creates trust.
Devin Pugh with UVI says the system is a tool, not a replacement, for human experts. Bannister Nissan's locations in Chesapeake and Norfolk are the only 2 places using the technology in the state, but Pugh expects demand for the system to grow. Toby Cox, WHRO News.
Fishers, get your boats and poles ready. Virginia could soon lift restrictions on harvesting invasive blue catfish. WHRO's Catherine Hafner breaks down how it could happen.
The Department of Wildlife Resources introduced blue catfish into Virginia waters in the 1970s. The goal was to create a new recreational fishery while the striped bass population was crashing. But Chris Moore with the Chesapeake Bay Foundation says that went a bit too well.
Things went a little haywire, and we're in a situation now where they really don't have a lot of predators except for themselves, and they have just expanded exponentially.
Blue catfish threaten the ecosystem by feasting on native species like blue crabs. The same state agency that brought them here now wants to cut the population. The Wildlife Resources Board will soon decide whether to remove limits on catching the fish recreationally. The change would apply to the York and Rappahannock rivers and the southern part of the James. Catherine Hafner, WHRO News.
The spotted lanternfly has descended upon grapevines, fruit orchards, and maple trees in more than half of Virginia's counties.
And that's not all. Now it's even hitting the entire Shenandoah Valley.
Randy B. Hagee from partner station WMRA reports how one vineyard in the valley is arming their patrons to help swat out the invasive insects.
Wolf Gap Vineyard and Winery is tucked into the hills outside of Edinburgh, with expansive mountain views on either side of their tasting room and pavilion. While other parts of the valley have been swarmed by spotted lanternflies for the past few years, owner Janelle Larrabee said they've been spared until recently.
We harvested, what were we harvesting? Chamberson, which is the next set of vines down, probably 4 weeks ago, and I saw 2 that day. That was the start.
Now, as we walk along 5 acres of rows of grapes, every single vine has lanternflies crawling on it. The inch-long adults have grayish forewings with black dots, which hide bright red hindwings underneath. They're native to parts of Asia and were first found in the U.S. in Pennsylvania in 2014.
This is Cabernet Sauvignon, and they're not only down here.
All up in
They're in here. Mm-hmm. They're breeding, and they're going to lay eggs. This is my Cabernet Sauvignon. This is my favorite product, and so it's scary.
Larrabee carries an electric fly swatter.
Look low. So what they're doing right now is they are feeding on the sap within the vines. And left untreated without action, they could actually kill the vines. And when you look at this, even after a frost event last night, right here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So there's so many in here. And so it stuns them. They're much easier to squish.
Last week, the winery announced a contest, a crusade really. For the rest of the month, patrons are invited to take one of the electric fly swatters, donated by Randy's Do It Best Hardware in Mount Jackson, and patrol the vines during their visit, stunning, squishing, and bagging the carcasses of as many lanternflies as they can. They keep track of their own kill count on the honor system, and whoever has the highest tally at the end of the month gets $100 cash.
We love all animals and insects, but this is invasive, and it's not just a problem for grapevines, it's a problem for orchards, it's a problem for lots of crops. And in our agriculture-rich Shenandoah Valley, we need all eyes on this, and we need everyone squashing out every single one they can. We need to fund the research at our universities, because that is where the best solutions and the best ideas are coming from, are out of universities.
One of those researchers is Drew Harner, who teaches viticulture, or the science of grape cultivation, at Virginia Tech, and is the viticulture extension specialist for the Virginia Cooperative Extension.
There's still so much we don't know, and
research is slow. It takes time. The academic research is really starting to concentrate on grapevines as being the primarily threatened plant species.
A team at Virginia Tech is working with other universities and the USDA's Agricultural Research Service to identify management strategies. Right now, the most effective thing they know to do is apply insecticides, targeting them on the edges of vineyards where the lanternflies often congregate.
In many cases, wine growers don't use many insecticides to begin with. This has become a very uncomfortable process because many people are having to use products that they maybe don't like using. They're very expensive too, and it's difficult to know when exactly is the right time to spray products.
Larrivee has considered using pesticides at Wolf Gap now that they're finished harvesting grapes for the season. As far as predators, people have sent Harner photos of wildlife such as blue jays, mockingbirds, praying mantises, and assassin bugs eating the lanternflies. He's heard anecdotally that runner ducks like eating them too. This summer, Rutgers University announced that Aaron McHale, a PhD candidate studying bats, found pieces of spotted lanternflies in bat guano. So Larrivee plans to install some bat boxes on the edge of her vineyard. Until then,
2 down, 2 million to go.
Wolf Gap's wine lovers will be taking them out one sip and smash at a time. I'm Randy B. Hagee.
Williamsburg, James City County, and the WJCC School Board recently signed a 10-year funding agreement for the Joint School Division. WHRO's Nick McNamara dives deep into the agreement.
The contract ends 2 years of uncertainty about WJCC schools, which Williamsburg and James City County have jointly run for 70 years. School Board Chair Sarah Ortego calls it a win for the city, county, schools, and students.
This is a new beginning for WJCC schools and a stronger beginning.
The agreement creates a predictable pathway to increase school funding, basing adjustments to each locality's contributions on enrollment. The city and county will also be responsible for maintenance of facilities within their bounds, splitting the cost for shared spaces. WJCC entered the year without an agreement, but that didn't impact operations since the school's budget was approved prior to its expiration this summer. Nick McNamara, WHRO News.
WJCC is a member of HREDA, which owns WHRO's broadcast license.
As we fall into the prime vaccine and shot season, the Virginia Department of Health has updated its COVID-19 vaccination guidance again. WHRO health reporter Yi-Ching Wang reports it largely eliminates the need for a prescription.
The Virginia Department of Health says the new Centers for Disease Control recommendations emphasize individual-based decision-making for the COVID vaccine. That means people who are 6 months and older can work with their doctors or pharmacists to decide whether to get the updated shot. Before the latest guidance, most Virginians under 65 needed a doctor's prescription to get vaccinated. Now, Virginians aged 3 and older can receive the vaccine at a pharmacy without a doctor's prescription. Yi-Ching Wang, WHRO News.
Back over to Virginia Beach, where a paramedic developed kits to help Virginia Beach first responders serve people who have autism and sensory challenges. WHRO's John Doucette reports that she was inspired by her son.
Paramedic Bailey Hartley's son has autism. Raising 4-year-old Colt made her think of how to improve services for emergency patients. She thought about a hypothetical 911 response for her own child.
How would they know that he's autistic? How would they be able to calm him down to understand, hey, what happened? What's wrong? Are you hurt?
Other departments around the country have used kits to help patients, and Hartley developed the Colt Kit initiative this year for the Virginia Beach Emergency Medical Services Department. Now the specialized kits are on every ambulance in the city. Colt Kits contain items such as sensory toys, noise-canceling headphones, and sunglasses. A range of tools can calm or help communicate with people with challenges officials may not know when they arrive on a call. John Doucette, WHRO News.
William and Mary Law School is launching the Center for Energy Law and Policy.
WHRO's Catherine Hafner spoke with Mark Christie, a longtime energy regulator who will be the center's founding director.
So tell me a bit about your background and what drew you to this new role.
I began specifically in energy really when I worked for Governor Allen when he was governor of Virginia back in the 1990s. I was his policy director and chief counsel, and a lot of energy issues were on the agenda even back in the 90s, particularly the issue of whether Virginia should restructure its electric regulation system. It was called deregulation. So I started really getting involved back then. And then later on, I was elected by the Virginia General Assembly to the State Corporation Commission, and this commission in Virginia regulates all the public utilities. I served as a commissioner for almost 17 years. After my third election, I was asked about would I be willing to go on the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission. I got nominated by the president and then confirmed by the Senate, and so I went on the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, which is called FERC, 4.5 years there, including the last 7 months as chairman of FERC. I was approached by a member of the William and Mary Law Foundation about potentially setting up a new center that would be a forum to study energy issues, and I was very attracted to it. I taught for 20 years at VCU. I taught for 10 years at University of Virginia Law School. So I wanted to return to teaching. And I thought, well, this is an exciting opportunity because it's not only teaching, but also the chance to start something new, to start something very important.
How will the new Energy Center operate, and what do you hope to accomplish?
This is going to be a neutral forum to discuss, analyze, evaluate the critically important issues in the energy space today, such as how do we pay for all the new generation we're going to need? How do we get the infrastructure built? How do we keep the grid reliable so that we have electric service 24/7, which everybody wants and expects? So the center is the forum to evaluate all those critically important issues. I'm very dedicated to making sure that students have a very important role in the center, in doing analysis, in doing studies, and potentially doing papers, potentially having internships, giving students the opportunity to really get deeply involved in energy issues, which intersect with environmental issues as well. 20 years ago, you might have talked about energy law and policy and environmental law and policy as two separate issues. Now they've pretty much merged.
Any conversation about energy in Virginia right now revolves around data centers. How does that factor into the curriculum?
Virginia is ground zero for data center development, not just for the United States. We are ground zero for the planet. There is more data center capacity, more data center development here in Virginia than any other political jurisdiction on the face of the earth. Think about that. That's one of the things that we want the center to really delve into. On the one hand, obviously, data centers have been an important economic development factor in Virginia. The local tax revenues are just extraordinary. The data center tax revenues are paying for a lot of local government services. But there's no question that data centers bring costs that have to be considered. And for one thing, they use a huge amount of electricity. It takes a lot of money to serve that load because when a large data center connects, Dominion has to spend a lot of money to upgrade that grid, those wires, because this huge amount of power is now flowing. When you're connecting a customer that may be using as much power as Manhattan, that takes a lot of additional generation, and that's got to be built or purchased. And this is where it really affects everybody. To a certain extent, what's been happening in Virginia is those costs largely have been socialized. The question is, are the costs being allocated fairly? And that's the kind of issue that we need to really look at very closely.
How does energy policy shape people's lives in Virginia?
If you get a monthly power bill, and virtually everybody does, you are affected by energy policy. And I know a lot of people are actually struggling to pay their power bills because they've been going up. They've been going up for 5 years, and there's a lot of reasons why it's going up. But the short answer to your question is, if you pay a monthly power bill, you had better care, in fact, you do care about energy policy, even if you don't think about it in terms of the details.
You've been listening to WHRO's Weekly Edition. We had help today from WHRO's Toby Cox, Nick McNamara, Michelle Hankerson, I-Ching Wang, Catherine Hafner, and John Doucette.
Jay Price with the American Homefront Project and WMRA's Randy B. Hagee. Also, Connor Worley, who produced today's show.
A reminder that you can always catch full episodes on the Weekly Edition podcast feed.
You can get your news updates at WHRO.org and the WHRO Reports podcast feed. For all of us at WHRO and WHRV, I'm Barry Graham.
And I'm Jordan Christie. Have a great weekend.